The New York Post dated February 17th, 2016 at 5:47 p.m. by Reuters. Caption reads, quote, "Humans and Neanderthals had hot prehistoric sex earlier than thought," unquote. Article reads, quote, "Research showing that our species interbred with Neanderthals some 100,000 years ago is providing intriguing evidence that Homo sapiens ventured out of Africa much earlier than previously thought." Scientists said on Wednesday an analysis of the genome, that's genome, of a Neanderthal woman whose remains were found in a cave in the Altai Mountains in southern Siberia near the Russian-Mongolia border detected residual DNA from Homo sapiens, a sign of interspecies mating. Our species arose in Africa roughly 200,000 years ago and later migrated to other parts of the world. I want to unquote that article. You know, I've been saying it for some time that I actually did a couple stage plays. I wrote a couple of stage plays on this issue itself. You know, there was a big thing, especially if anyone remembers the early 1980s. The big thing was the missing link. We have to find the missing link. And I've said ever since doing a serious research in the early 80s that there is no missing link. And there is no missing link, by the way. What it was a gradual process from the Neanderthals to the Homo erectus to the Homo sapien to the human form we are now. Very slow progress over hundreds of thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years, but mainly hundreds of thousands of years over a very long period of time. We interbred. I agree with that 100%. In fact, I'll go you one better. And I did this in one of my stage plays. I should read it, but I don't know. I'll see. People don't even know this, by the way. People say humans can't live underwater. We can't breathe underwater. Well, we can't once we come out of the womb. But when we're inside the womb, in a mother's womb, regardless if you're a girl or a boy, female or male, when you're inside of the womb itself, you're actually in this sac of fluid, which keeps you alive, actually. And that fluid is, majority of it is water. So when we're fetuses inside the mother's womb, we are actually, guess what? Living in water, underwater. And what that really is telling you, if you're smart enough to figure it out, intelligent enough to figure it out, is that in the very beginning of the fetus, as you progress from the ova, and then it finally progresses into a fetus, a human form, it's basically mimicking, or sort of, I don't know, mimicking isn't the word I'm looking for, but sort of is saying that at one stage in the human's existence, we had lived underwater, meaning, in other words, we're a part of the fish. We came from the fish. We came from the amphibian, and then eventually from the lizards. So at one time, it was because we come from the fish, or we basically come from the sea or the water, as a fetus, that's like, it's hard to explain, but that's like one part of the progression of the human as you grow. From the cells, we're all part of cells and atoms. We all have atoms in our body which mimic, or I'm going to say mimic, but that's not really the word I'm looking for, that mimic the universe. We have hydrogen, we have helium, we have oxygen, all those atoms that are in our bodies. So we are a part. What's out there in the universe billions of years ago is actually in our bodies today. And it just shows a very slow progression. So at one time we were fish, believe it or not, and that can be reflected because as fetuses we're actually underwater. And then and you know, I'll even go you one further, and I did this also in the play, is when we're on all fours, when we're born. When babies are born, eventually they crawl, which is basically mimics. Hopefully mimic is the right word. I don't have too long here. Might have to do a part 2 on this. But it's very interesting. Not that anyone will click onto this because unfortunately what sells or what people watch on YouTube, they like entertainment instead of intellectual pursuits. But mimic, yeah. So let me just look at the mimic. Make sure I have it. To imitate, copy an action. To imitate. Hopefully, it's the right one and work. It's not really the exact word I'm looking for. Imitate. Mimic isn't the right word, but hopefully you get the picture. But at one time, we were all on all fours, crawl around as kids, you know, as toddlers, which mimic that at one time. That shows you that we were once like dogs and cats and antelope and deer and all of that other stuff out there at one time, because even those animals are always on all fours. And as time progressed, the human, eventually at about 1.5, 2 years old, he can wind up standing on his 2 feet. And that basically, of course, is the human form, is where we're at. And then about 1.5, 2 years old, that's when we start to take off as far as who we are as a species. And then we go from there, of course. The only thing that stands there just for a slight bit of time is the monkey, because the monkey can actually stand on two feet as well. Of course, they're more in a hunched position. But that also mimics how at one time the Neanderthal and the Homo erectus was, though the Homo erectus was a little bit more, you know, more upright. So all these things, and to read this in an article, like as if they discovered something great, I figured all this stuff out in the early 80s. So these people are way behind the times. In fact, they're probably still inside the womb. You guys have a good one. Bye.